I'd like to invite Dr. Iqrar Ahmad Khan talk to us about the looming food crisis in the world. Again, please stick to the 20 minutes.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Madam Chairperson, Dr. Masuma Hasan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm no word expert, but I'll just use some of the review to show you what's happening in the world, and then I'll move on to our own case study. If I could have the first slide. Okay, so can I do it myself? Okay, there is a word definition which has been around since 1996 by FAO, that food security is a situation when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. And there are four elements to it. One is availability, which means there is sufficient production, supply chain, and storage. Next is access. Access being both physical and financial access or affordability. And then there is utilization, which means there is a healthy use of food ingredients. There's clean water. There is absorption of the food ingredients by a normal person. And the fourth element to food security is its stability, which means that all three of the earlier conditions are met and consistently met. I've also looked through the forecast and predictions. These data are from one of the papers published in Nature in 2007 data and projected to 2050. That black bars are 2007 and yellow bars are 2050. And based on these predictions, in terms of dollar terms, the food bill or food requirements will more than double by 2050. And most of that demand or pull is within the Asian region, and the biggest puller is China. And even today, China is the biggest food importer in the world. Okay, there is another trend in world food consumption, that over time, the reliance on grains or cereals for everyday calories is declining, whereas the reliance on non-cereal food, particularly animal source protein, dairy, as well as meat, poultry, egg, would be rising. And so would be the case with vegetable oil foods and sugar sweeteners slightly. If we look at our own situation in Pakistan, more than 70% of the calories are driven just from one source, which is wheat. And we are also world's largest per head consumer of edible oil, which is very unusual. The lesson here is that in the decades to come, there will be diversification, at least in the global scale. We hope that we also learn how to diversify our diets. The determining factors for food security or food situation are land, water, and air. Of course, land, water, and air has a great element of technology, management, the public policy, which are the enablers. In terms of land, there is a serious element of degradation because of salinity, because of erosion, and most serious of all is actually urbanization. The very productive lands going into housing programs. My colleague just mentioned the case of Ravi, that doesn't even have environmental flow in there, whereas country's largest new housing scheme is coming up under something called as Ruda, where there is no water, and there will be a new Lahore being built over there. So that is something which has its own dynamics the developers, and of course, in Pakistan there is a story of you know taming the laws. There is a British land law according to which there is a classification of land as agriculture and what is called as Zrai and Sikni. Now, the Sikni, converting Zrai to Sikni is actually extremely impossible, very difficult. And to overcome that legal situation, we have a new law series called as Development Authorities, Karachi Development Authorities, CDA, LDA. Now, LDA was not enough to go beyond certain limits, so we created RUDA. And those are the ways to actually manipulate the land. The next important component is, of course, water. And the color scheme on this map, on the world map, actually shows that there are countries which are in low scarcity zone, which are blue, and then there are medium and high water scarcity red zone. We are in nearly high scarcity zone, and the equally important component, which my earlier colleague has already dilated upon, is greenhouse gas emission. And greenhouse gas emission also has some agricultural background, that in addition to vehicular emission and industrial emission, in Pakistan, the two biggest agricultural greenhouse gas emitters are the puddled rice or any flooded agriculture in which there is anaerobic condition. You have methane emission. And the other is the animal excreta. We have one of the largest livestock population, about 80 million large ruminants and about 70 million small ruminants. All of them are actually a big source of greenhouse gas. This is just reinforcing the water crisis, that we are in a critical zone, and many other countries of the world are facing the same crisis. And it is not that water is not sufficient. A lot of time it is the bad water management. It is the inefficient irrigation systems, which I'll also allude to. The overarching factor on this food security is actually population rise. And the line graphs on the left side are basically showing different parts of the world in which the population is projected by the end of this century. In most cases, by the end of century, the population will start declining. We are in a region which will start flattening after the middle of this century. But the population will rise geometrically in Africa. Another important element here shown here is the migration from rural to urban. So when there is more migration to urban areas, there will be more demand for housing. When the migration takes place, it also takes away from the rural areas scale and the capital investment, and that means there will be more stress on agriculture, thus in food production. Okay, there are the elements linked to this analysis. One is that even though there is hue and cry that we have looming food crisis, if you look at obesity, that overeating, higher consumption rates, all across countries in low income, middle income, higher income, and all of them have rising trend of obesity. Also, very interesting analysis is that today there are about 800 million people which are malnourished, and it is predicted that by 2030 there will be significant decline in people who are malnourished. These are FAO figures, but closer to home we have multiple surveys released by UNDP and some of our own think tanks, and year after year those surveys since 2002 are showing that our malnourishment has been growing, and particularly the victims are women and children, which are not properly fed. The average number is around 40% of the population is facing one form or the other of malnourishment. Okay, so what are the lessons or challenges here? The lesson is that climate change is a serious threat to the food security. We need to build resilience to these shocks. We need to learn how to use natural resources sustainably, particularly land and water. And then the issue of elimination of all form of malnutrition, that it's not always the lack of food, but sometimes it's a distributive injustice. At present, in the world, the food produced is more than the requirement of 8 billion people. But the distribution is, of course, not, just meeting the just requirements. We know the cases of famines. The famous Bengal famine was not the famine of lack of food. It was injustice, and it was distributive injustice. So those injustices will stay around. That means there is a requirement for more coordination and better governance. And that also means that we need to see what to do with the poverty, increasing awareness, and then, of course, building more technological strength so that better governance and better distribution takes place. So from here on, I'll just use some examples of why these foods are surplus, and I don't see actually threat of lack of food in the world, at least during this century. But the other reasons will be certainly reason for calling it a crisis. The first and most important transformation is water use efficiency. Uh, our, our system of irrigation, the most inefficient irrigation system is less than 40% efficient. 60% of water is wasted. And one of the option is shifting it to energy driven. Whether that is high efficiency irrigation, is it warning for me? Okay, all right. So our irrigation system is gravity driven. So if you have to make it efficient, then it has to be energy driven. And if we can look after our energy requirements, then water efficiency is also possible. The other important issue is precision, that in agriculture, every input has a cost, whether that's water, whether it's a diesel, it's a gram of fertilizer, chemical, or it is seed, man hours, all of them have a price. And precision is very important. This example is just to show you that this is a typical citrus garden in which we have a tree which has 211 cubic meter canopy, and we have a tree which is only 2 cubic meter canopy. And according to our system, both of them are getting same amount of input because we flood the input. And that adds to the cost and makes the system inefficient. Then use of more technology, particularly plastics and data analytics. This is a picture from Xinjiang, China, where the cotton is 120 days and the per acre yield is 70 months plus. So it's a precision and the use of combination of technology, which is why the world food supplies are surplus. Another important component is adoption of GM crops. Genetically modified crops have reduced the cost of production. They are safe. They are actually reducing the use of chemicals, but there is misgiving. World is divided between the ecological lobby and the GM lobby. The European Union actually is protecting our farmers by building a lobby against GM crops because they don't need extra food. They can afford organic food. But if you are talking about feeding 10 billion people, then you need GM foods, which are otherwise safe. Close to home, आगे जाके बताऊंगा. About a year back, our food minister actually gave a statement that the soybean coming to Pakistan is GM, which is actually causing cancer, so we are stopping its entry. And at that one statement, actually escalated the poultry price 300 times. And half of the poultry went out of business. The GM soybean has been around. The biggest consumer of GM food in the world now is China. Their height is rising, their longevity is rising, and GM food has done nothing wrong to them. So we have to actually build a dialogue and debate to accept technology, and to improve our productive base for food security. Wasted. And we are talking about large storage large storage dams. Mangala and Tabela put together are 13 million acre feet. Yeah, 12 या 13 million acre feet है. Whereas we are wasting about 60 to 70 million acre feet in the bad irrigation system. Yes, because the irrigation efficiency is less than 50%. So that is the first bit of stats. Or I'm just giving you the data of 4 major crops, food crops, which are actually wheat, rice, maize, and cotton. I'm not adding sugarcane here. Excepting maize, in last 20 years, every yield has been stagnant. In case of maize, the yield barrier was broken because our laws stopped working on them and we allowed the entry of hybrid seed. If we take another decision and allow the hybrid and GM corn, there will be 100% increase in the current level of productivity of corn. Okay, the silver lining is that because of this stagnation, we have learned some lessons, that there is a national average, and there is progressive farmers average, and then there is a research average. I will give you the example of wheat. This year, the wheat average will be better than the many previous years, but our 10 years average would be around 32 months per acre. The progressive farmers average is always above 50, and demonstrator average is 90 to 100 months. So that's where it is a case of simple adoption. It's a case of enablement, that the timely availability of inputs, the horsepower, the machinery, and the proper use of seed. And a lot of time, actually, input quality and the market nexus creates the change. And that is the case in case of maize I presented to you. In case of maize, in last 10 years, the production has jumped 300%, from little over 3 million ton to more than 9 million ton. It's just because there's a poultry industry buyer and there's a hybrid seed behind. And it is scale neutral. 1 acre farmer or 100 acre farmer using same seed, selling it to the same poultry feed industry. So, but this year what has happened to wheat is something what is, you can say, blessing in disguise. I'm the supporter of government's action. Government ने जो किया ठीक किया, but ये पिछले साल करते तो अच्छा होता. Because this year they had given the hope to the farmer, and there was extra acreage, 1.5 million acre extra went into wheat. Farmer made a lot of investment. Input cost went higher because market knew that wheat price is very good, and then government backed off. Government should have backed off last year when the market price was higher than their spot price. So there is a nexus between technology and the market. Okay, not only in case of crops, we also have a similar crisis in case of livestock. Here is a comparison of Sahiwal cow with the Holstein Friesian. There are data available that in 1920s, the Sahiwal cow was as productive as Holstein Friesian cow. Today, our cow is still there. Our per lactation milk is around 2,000 liter, whereas the minimum in case of Holstein is 10,000 liter. So that is a case of genetic improvement, better nutrition, balanced application of technology in terms of housing, and of course there is element of market again, because wherever you have these dairy industries, the farmer has a fair amount of subsidies and protections. Okay, we did a simulation for 5 crops that last 10 years government data and predicted what will happen in next 10 years. Last 20 years data predicted what will happen in next 10 years. What you're seeing here is that the blue line is the actual data, the dots are trends, and if the business remains as usual, the solid line in the middle is what we will have in next 10 years, which can be bad as the lower line and very good as the upper line. Based on this simulation, And if we forecast the wheat requirement only, which is around 120 kilogram per head per year, in next 10 years, we will be short of 7 million ton of wheat alone, just to feed the basic do chapati subah sham. 7 to 8 million ton wheat short. There's absolutely no reason that why should that happen. But if we look at last 20 years, public policy framework and technology application, that will be this condition in next 10 years.
We have about 2 minutes.
Okay, yes, I'm moving fast now. So based on these simulations, we have written a strategic plan for Punjab government in which we have identified about 77 issues. 81 commodities have been analyzed, and as a result of that, we believe that there are interventions possible in land and water, technology input, productivity enhancement, as well as diversification, ecological zoning, and doing better market practices. I've already made some comments here. I would just like to mention that in collaboration with the FAO in 2018-19, we have already published agroecological zones based on the available data. That was first done for Punjab, now it has been done for all 4 provinces, which allows for better decision making. This is data which was then superimposed on the crop norms. And that's where what I mentioned about 81 commodities. Now in 2018-2019, we did for 55 commodities. And that is very important to understand that our current cropping scheme, even though we have more than 100 commodities grown in the country, 72% land is 2 crops, wheat and rice. And then if you add the other 3 crops, that is more than 90% of land and water. So that is then reflected in our economy as well as in our diets and in our health profiles. So we have now secured enough resources. The Punjab government is investing that we're creating a live platform in which the data are getting updated and decision support systems are being built. This is how we irrigate wheat. This is wheat, every single acre, 22 million acres. When it takes water like this, this also produces same amount of methane as the rice does. Okay, this is how we would like to propose, Chalayan School. This is rice, not wheat. This is rice field. This is rice without puddling, the same rice, ready for harvesting, mechanized, shredded, and on the same bed, wheat is coming on it.
The time is up.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying is very important. So it's case of food security. So now this is with less than 40% of water and more yield than what is required and no GHG. No GHG at all. So this is a very good case for getting carbon credit. But it requires investment in mechanization actually. Okay, now that I'm running out of time, I'll just make a few more comments. Since our biggest crop is wheat and 23 or 24 harvest years were very good because of temperature. And if you look at 5 years back, every year there was heat. My friend was saying that it was early ripening, but it was also low yield because grain was shriveled. So you need to come up with genetics which can stand that shock. And that's what our breeding programs are doing right now, that we are developing varieties. You can see that on the extreme right, shriveled grain, and 2 in the left side, bold grain during those heat shock years. Our biggest food import is edible oil, about $5 billion US. And the only way out is that we indigenize it and come up with shorter duration crops so we could have more. Currently our cropping intensity is 200%. There are 2 crops a year. We need to shorten the duration and bring in an edible oil crop. This is a case of mustard. You can see on the right there is a variety which is 110 days, which is determinate. It only flowered once and matured. Whereas on the right is the traditional brassica or sarson, which takes 5 months it keep on producing pods and flowers. So you have to reduce the duration. Duration reduction is also a most, sophisticated way of climate adaptation. Okay, the second major import commodity is chickpea, dal chana. So we have left it to rain. If there's a good rain, there's a good chana crop in Thal. If there's no rain, we import. And in bad years, we import up to $1 billion worth of chana from Canada and Australia. Jilani साहब बैठे हैं, ये वहाँ ऑस्ट्रेलिया से चना भिजवाते रहे. So we are talking, and even in good year, the Thal, ये from Muzaffargarh to Mianwali, वो उसको MM रोड कहते हैं. MM रोड के दोनों से जो चना होता है, even in good year, उसकी yield 5 मन होती है. So we are proposing to change this system, and its acreage is coming down because Thal is transforming. Sweetwater zone, solar energy, free fuel pumping water, people are giving up chana. So we have to come up with a new chana crop, which we have now. Time thoda makai. Most of that corn is not now going only into poultry feed. It has now given a new silage industry for livestock. That silage industry needs a combination of sorghum and soybean instead of corn only. Now I come to soybean.
We need to close, I think.
भूखे मर जाएंगे अगर इनको ना पता चला. Okay.
I don't know.
Soybean is an essential commodity. It's a $1.5 billion US import, and it is misgiving and I would say nalaki on the part of scientific community as well as policy abortion that we have never paid attention to soybean. Soybean is a kharif crop. All over the world, soybean is rotated with maize. So wherever there's a maize or rice, there is supposed to be soybean. So we have never worked enough on soybean. For last, it is ready. It is ready. It is ready. This year, we have 2,000 acres. We have given commitment to the Punjab government that we will provide enough seed for 500,000 acres next year. All we need is 2 million. And 2 million acres can easily be extracted from maize, rice, cotton, sugarcane, and which will be enough. And this was the case 20 years ago in India. India is now net exporter of soybean. So there's no reason that we don't produce soybean. So soybean is a success story in the making. I will stop here, but एक आखिरी slide जरूर मैंने discuss करनी. वो slide जरा जो ये देखे खवातीन की slide है. अच्छा नहीं. Okay, ये slide discuss करनी है. Okay, agriculture and food security requires investment in research. And this is a plot of 1960 in which higher income countries, upper part, middle part is middle income country, and green part at the bottom is low income countries. Today, the middle income countries, particularly India, China, and Brazil, are investing more in research than the high income countries. Whereas our part, the green part, has shrunk. We are not investing in research. Yeah. Thank you. That's very close to my heart, I tell you. पहले ये देखें, ये भी खवातीन है, ये पेंडू है, और वो ये यूनिवर्सिटी वाली है. ओके, तो ये प्रोग्राम कर रही है पंजाब की चीफ मिनिस्टर.
Thank you very much. I know it was a very important topic that you spoke of, but in the interest of time, I'm sorry I had to intervene and stop you.